Have you ever wondered if the things you don't even notice during intimacy might be creating the very disconnection you're trying to avoid? Because that's the part most men never think about. The hidden damage that isn't loud, dramatic, or obvious. It's subtle. It's quiet. It happens in the moments where intention is good, desire is genuine, but awareness is missing. And in those moments, without realizing it, men can create pressure, tension, or discomfort that a woman never fully speaks about. Not because she doesn't feel it, but because she doesn't want to hurt you, disappoint you, or make you pull away. This isn't about blame. It's about awakening. As Brené Brown writes in Daring Greatly, vulnerability begins with the courage to truly see what we've been too busy or too afraid to notice. And that's exactly what happens in the bedroom when men move on autopilot, thinking they're doing what should feel good, not realizing her body and her emotions are trying to communicate a completely different message. Have you ever noticed how two people can be physically close, closer than they are with anyone else, yet emotionally miles apart in the very same moment? That's the quiet divide unintentional habits can create during intimacy. Not dramatic, not loud, not obvious, just subtle shifts that slowly teach a woman's body to brace instead of open, to endure instead of enjoy, to go quiet instead of express what she truly needs. And most men never see it happening, not because they don't care, but because no one ever taught them to look for it. It often begins with pacing. Men move too quickly, not out of selfishness, but out of excitement, out of the belief that passion should feel spontaneous and fast. But a woman's body doesn't interpret speed the same way. What feels like enthusiasm to him can feel like pressure to her when her body isn't warmed, when her emotions haven't caught up, when her breath isn't in sync with the moment. Fast becomes overwhelming. And overwhelm is the first stage of shutting down. Not because she wants to disconnect, because her nervous system instinctively protects her from anything that feels rushed. Another unintentional habit is assumption, believing that what worked before will work again, that a familiar gesture always creates pleasure, that she responds the same way every time. Intimacy isn't a formula. Her body changes with mood, with stress, with trust, with how safe she feels inside the moment. When men approach her as if she's predictable, she stops feeling seen. When he uses the same touch without checking in, she may nod or smile, but inside, she's withdrawing a little, feeling that her unique experience is going unnoticed, and emotional distance begins right there, in the space where a woman feels she must perform enjoyment instead of expressing truth. Silence can create even deeper separation. Men often stay quiet because they think confidence means certainty, as if asking questions might ruin the mood. But silence during intimacy is a double-edged blade. Without gentle words, without reassurance, without the simple act of checking in, she's left to interpret every movement on her own. If something feels uncomfortable, she doesn't know if she's allowed to speak up. If something doesn't feel good, she worries about disappointing him. Silence becomes pressure, pressure becomes tension, and tension becomes physical discomfort she carries in her breath, her shoulders, her hips. Discomfort she hides because she fears the emotional consequences of telling the truth. Breath is another place where men unintentionally disconnect from women. Many men don't notice her breathing at all. The way it speeds up when she's excited, or slows when she's anxious, or pauses when something doesn't feel right. A woman's breath is her entire communication system during intimacy. It tells the story her words hesitate to reveal. When a man ignores the changes in her breath, he unknowingly misses the roadmap her body is offering him. She feels unseen, and that feeling, more than any physical misstep, creates emotional distance. Touch plays a massive role as well. Not the big, obvious touches, but the micro moments. The grip that is slightly too firm, the hand that moves before her body is ready, the kiss that comes without sensing if she's relaxed or tense. When a woman's body tenses and a man doesn't slow down, doesn't adjust, doesn't pause to read her cues, her body receives one message: my comfort isn't the priority. Even if that isn't his intention, her nervous system registers it as a kind of emotional abandonment. And emotional abandonment, even in the smallest forms, creates physical shutdown. One of the most common habits that causes hidden damage is goal-focused intimacy. Men often feel responsible for creating an outcome: pleasure, orgasm, satisfaction. But focusing on the goal creates pressure for both partners. For him, it becomes performance. For her, it becomes expectation. When the moment turns into a task, she stops experiencing pleasure and starts managing his feelings, managing his ego, managing his excitement. And the instant she shifts from feeling to managing, intimacy becomes emotional labor instead of connection. That emotional labor leads to mental withdrawal, even if her body stays present. There's also the subtle habit of ignoring the warm-up her body needs, not because men don't care, but because their own warm-up looks completely different. Men often experience desire as ignition. Women experience desire as unfolding. When a man touches her before she feels emotionally open, her body might respond with dryness, tightness, or discomfort. Not because she doesn't want him, but because her body is still guarding itself, and she internalizes that discomfort as something she must tolerate quietly. Over time, the association between intimacy and tension becomes stronger than the association between intimacy and pleasure. Another unintentional habit is not recognizing when she disconnects emotionally mid-moment. A woman can be fully engaged 1 second and then suddenly drift away in the next. Not out of disinterest, but because something didn't feel right, or she got in her head, or she felt self-conscious, or she felt pressure to respond a certain way. When a man continues without noticing her shift, without slowing down to bring her back into the moment, she feels alone inside an experience that's supposed to be shared. That loneliness becomes emotional distance. And she carries that distance into future moments without fully understanding why she feels less open than before. Even well-meaning enthusiasm can create discomfort when men forget that intimacy is a dialogue, not a performance. When a man tries too hard, overdoes the movements, or follows a routine he believes is impressive, he may unintentionally overwhelm her senses. What he intends as passion can feel like chaos to her. A woman's desire grows through rhythm, through pacing, through attunement. When the rhythm is off, her ability to stay present slips away, and presence is everything in intimacy. Without it, the body becomes mechanical and the heart becomes quiet. And then there's the habit that causes the deepest damage of all, pretending everything is fine. Men pretend they know what they're doing. Women pretend nothing hurts. Both pretend they're connected even when they're drifting apart internally. Pretending is the most common intimacy killer on earth. It creates a false sense of closeness while feeding a silent emotional gap. And that gap, if never acknowledged, turns intimacy into duty instead of desire. But here's the most important truth. None of these unintentional habits make a man bad. They make him uneducated, uninformed, disconnected from the communication her body has been speaking all along. And the moment a man becomes aware of these patterns, everything changes. Because awareness is the antidote to accidental harm. When he slows down enough to notice her signals, when he asks instead of assumes, when he breathes with her, moves with her, and listens with his whole presence, her body responds with trust. Trust transforms discomfort into openness, tension into ease, distance into connection. A woman doesn't need perfection. She needs presence. She needs a partner who notices the quiet cues, who responds with gentleness, who creates a space where her body feels safe enough to let go. When men replace unconscious habits with conscious attention, they don't just improve intimacy, they elevate the entire relationship. They turn moments of closeness into moments of healing, pleasure, and deep emotional connection. And that shift, once it happens, changes everything that comes after. Have you ever noticed how the smallest moments during intimacy, the seconds between touch and breath, the pauses between movement and connection, can either draw two people closer or quietly pull them apart? That's where silence, rushing, and assumptions do their deepest damage. Not in the dramatic moments, not in conflict or disagreement, but in the subtle cues that a woman's body reads long before her mind can even articulate them. Silence is often misunderstood by men. Many believe that being quiet shows confidence, control, or presence. They think speaking might interrupt the moment or make things feel awkward. But in reality, silence during intimacy is rarely interpreted that way by a woman. Silence creates uncertainty. It creates a vacuum where she begins filling in the blanks with her own worries and insecurities. When a man stays silent, she wonders if she's doing something wrong, if he's disconnected, if he's simply going through the motions. Silence doesn't feel mysterious to her. It feels lonely. Women thrive on reassurance, not because they're insecure, but because intimacy is vulnerable. Her body is opening, softening, exposing parts of her she guards from the world. Without gentle conversation, without small moments of affirmation, without whispers that anchor her to the experience, she feels like she's navigating the moment alone. And nothing creates emotional distance faster than feeling alone next to someone you were supposed to feel closest to. Silence also keeps her from speaking up. When he doesn't create a safe communicative space, she assumes he doesn't want feedback, or worse, he might be hurt by it. Her discomfort becomes something she hides instead of expresses, and the damage grows quietly. One moment of discomfort becomes a pattern becomes a habit becomes a story she tells herself about how intimacy with him will always feel. Rushing causes a different kind of damage, physical and emotional at the same time. Men rush because desire hits them like a surge, because they're eager, because they feel the moment and want to dive into it. But desire doesn't hit women the same way. While men ignite quickly, women unfold slowly. Her body doesn't respond well to speed. It responds to buildup, to anticipation, to the gradual awakening of her senses. When he rushes, he skips the very process her body requires to feel safe, ready, and receptive. Rushing sends a message she can't ignore, that his excitement matters more than her comfort. Even if that's not his intention, her nervous system interprets it that way. When he moves too fast, she tenses, and the moment she tenses, pleasure disconnects. When he doesn't notice that tension, when he pushes forward instead of slowing down, her body begins to associate intimacy with bracing. Bracing becomes habit, and habit becomes disinterest. Many women don't speak this truth out loud, but they feel it deeply. The pace a man sets tells her everything about his care for her. Slow says, "I'm here with you." Rushing says, "I'm here for the destination." She feels the difference instantly. Assumptions do even deeper harm because they create a false sense of understanding. Men often assume they know what she likes based on what worked once, or what worked with someone else, or what they've seen or read. But intimacy is never the same twice. A woman's body changes with her emotions, her day, her stress level, her cycle, her trust in the moment. What delighted her yesterday might overwhelm her today. What made her open last week might feel too intense now. When men assume, they stop paying attention. They stop reading her breath, her rhythm, her reactions. They move with memory rather than awareness. And she feels it. She feels the absence of attunement, the lack of curiosity, the sense that he's following a script instead of listening to her body in real time. That disconnect creates a quiet sadness in her, a sense that she is not truly being seen. The most harmful assumption of all is believing that no news is good news, that if she doesn't speak up, everything must feel good. Many women stay silent not because it feels right, but because they don't want to disappoint him, hurt him, or break his confidence. She prioritizes his ego over her own comfort, and every time she does that, a small part of her pulls away, emotionally and physically. Silence, rushing, and assumptions form a triangle of disconnection. Silence makes her feel unseen. Rushing makes her feel unsafe. Assumptions make her feel misunderstood. Together, they create an intimacy landscape where she feels present in body but absent in heart. Men rarely mean to create this harm. Most don't even realize it's happening. They move with good intentions, with excitement, with affection, but intention doesn't erase impact. And the impact shows up in the way she starts avoiding closeness, the way she takes longer to warm up, the way she emotionally detaches even when physically participating. But here's the empowering truth. The antidote to these habits is incredibly simple. Communication dissolves silence. Patience dissolves rushing. Curiosity dissolves assumptions. When a man speaks softly, checks in, and shows genuine interest, her body relaxes before he even touches her. When he slows down, her breath opens. When he asks instead of assumes, she feels valued, honored, understood. A single sentence can flip the entire experience. Tell me what feels good. Is this the pace you like? Show me your rhythm. These words are not awkward, they're liberating. They turn intimacy into partnership instead of performance. They transform uncertainty into trust. They make her feel safe enough to express her truth instead of hiding it. When men break the cycle of silence, slow their pace, and replace assumptions with curiosity, they don't just prevent harm, they unlock deeper pleasure, deeper connection, and deeper emotional bonding than they ever imagined possible. Because when a woman feels seen, safe, and understood, her body responds with a level of desire, openness, and intensity that no technique could ever create on its own. Intimacy becomes not something they do, but something they share. Not a task, but a journey. Not pressure, but connection. And that connection becomes the foundation for the most powerful experiences two people can create together. Imagine for a moment that intimacy is like a dance, but not just any dance. A dance where every step, every breath, every touch is a language. For many men, the instinct is to lead with confidence, thinking that knowing the steps is enough. But women don't respond to the choreography. They respond to the conversation in motion. And that conversation only happens when awareness, curiosity, and communication guide every move. Awareness is the first key. It's about noticing her body, her energy, her micro reactions, the subtle shifts in her breath, the small changes in her muscle tension, the way her eyes light up or close. Awareness is not passive observation. It's active engagement with her presence. When a man is truly aware, he sees what she feels before she speaks it. He senses when she's tense, when she's relaxing, when she's leaning into him, when she's pulling back. That kind of observation doesn't require perfection. It requires attention. And attention, more than skill or stamina, communicates care. Curiosity is the natural companion to awareness. Once you notice, you ask, not in a testing way, not in a clinical way, but with genuine interest in her experience. Curiosity is the willingness to be guided by her body instead of your assumptions. It's saying, I want to understand how this feels for you and meaning it. Curiosity replaces the silent guessing game that causes so much emotional distance. When a man approaches intimacy with curiosity, every moment becomes an opportunity to learn, to explore, to adapt. Curiosity says, I'm not here to perform, I'm here to understand you. And that understanding translates directly into pleasure because the body responds to being seen and heard. Communication is the bridge that connects awareness and curiosity. It's not about lectures, instructions, or rehearsed lines. It's about gentle, guiding words, whispers, affirmations, and questions that invite her into the moment. Communication reassures, encourages, and confirms. It tells her, you are safe, you are desired. I am here with you, not racing ahead, not lost in my own agenda. Even something as simple as asking, do you like this or would you like me to go slower, can transform a moment from mechanical interaction into shared connection. These three qualities, awareness, curiosity, and communication, don't just enhance pleasure, they fundamentally change her entire experience. When she feels that her body is truly noticed, that her reactions are respected, and that she can guide the experience without fear of judgment, her nervous system relaxes. That relaxation opens her to a level of intimacy that no technique can manufacture. Her body responds more fully, her sensations deepen, her pleasure becomes more intense and more expansive. Consider how these qualities interact in real time. Awareness allows a man to see the tiny tension in her shoulders, the way her hips shift, the way her breath falters. Curiosity nudges him to wonder, what would help her feel more comfortable right now? Communication lets him act on that curiosity, inviting her to guide him. Would you like me to stay here or move this way? That simple triad creates an environment of safety, trust, and attunement where her body feels free to respond and her mind can finally let go. Without these qualities, intimacy is a series of guesses. With them, intimacy becomes a conversation that transcends words. Women experience a profound sense of validation and empowerment. Their bodies feel understood, their desires are acknowledged, and their pleasure becomes an active dialogue rather than a passive outcome. The difference is not small, it's transformative. Many men overlook this because they equate confidence with certainty, thinking they must always know what to do. But the truth is, real confidence is not about knowing. It's about being present enough to notice, humble enough to ask, and flexible enough to follow. When men embrace this mindset, they stop creating moments of tension and discomfort and start co-creating experiences of profound connection. Awareness, curiosity, and communication also create a ripple effect that extends beyond the physical. Emotional intimacy deepens because she feels heard, seen, and valued. Trust grows because she knows he's attuned to her, even in the smallest, quietest moments. Confidence emerges not just in pleasure, but in the safety of expressing herself without fear of misunderstanding. These are not small benefits. They are the foundation for a lasting and deeply satisfying connection. It's important to recognize this approach doesn't require perfection or endless practice. It requires a willingness to slow down, to engage fully, to listen and respond. One conscious adjustment, the way he pauses to watch her reaction, the way he asks a simple question, the way he notices and adjusts his pace, can change a woman's experience entirely. These small acts communicate more than technique ever could. I see you, I hear you, I want to connect with you. Over time, this triad of awareness, curiosity, and communication creates a feedback loop of intimacy. She responds more fully. He notices more deeply. They communicate more openly. Desire grows, pleasure multiplies, and the emotional bond strengthens. Intimacy stops being a goal to achieve or a performance to deliver. It becomes a shared journey where both partners are fully present, fully engaged, and fully attuned to each other's needs and desires. Books like Come As You Are emphasize that female pleasure is highly contextual, deeply relational, and shaped by emotional safety as much as physical stimulation. Awareness, curiosity, and communication directly cultivate that safety. They transform moments of closeness from mere physical interaction into rich, resonant experiences that leave both partners feeling connected, desired, and fully alive. The impact doesn't just stay in the bedroom. When a man practices awareness, curiosity, and communication, the effects spill over into the relationship as a whole. Conversations become more open. Conflicts are handled with more empathy. Emotional vulnerability is met with understanding rather than judgment. And intimacy, both sexual and emotional, becomes a source of joy, security, and mutual fulfillment. This approach is not optional, it's essential. Ignoring it leaves intimacy flat, mechanical, and disconnected. Embracing it elevates intimacy into an experience of shared discovery, deep pleasure, and profound emotional resonance. Awareness, curiosity, and communication are not just skills. They are the foundation for real connection, the antidote to accidental harm, and the key to creating moments that she will remember, not just for the pleasure, but for the feeling of being truly known and seen. When men integrate these qualities into their intimate moments, they unlock an entirely new level of trust, desire, and connection. She experiences pleasure not just as a physical response, but as an emotional awakening. She feels the depth of being truly noticed and valued, and the relationship itself transforms because intimacy becomes less about outcome and more about presence, less about performance and more about partnership, less about pressure and more about mutual exploration. In essence, awareness, curiosity, and communication turn every intimate moment into an opportunity to co-create something far richer than anyone could imagine, a space where both partners feel fully alive, fully connected, and fully understood. That is the kind of intimacy that transforms not just the bedroom, but the heart, the mind, and the soul. Most men think confidence in intimacy is about skill, endurance, or knowing exactly what to do. They believe that if they can perform well, hit the right moves, the right rhythm, the right pace, they will create desire, connection, and satisfaction. And while technique has its place, the truth is far deeper. Real confidence comes from presence, not performance. Presence is what transforms moments of intimacy from mechanical actions into emotional resonance. Presence begins with being fully in the moment. It's noticing her subtle cues, the way her body shifts, the slight change in her breathing, the way her eyes meet yours or look away. It's feeling the rhythm between the two of you rather than focusing solely on an end goal. When a man is present, he isn't checking off a mental list of what he should do. He's responding, adapting, and engaging with her in real time. That responsiveness is the essence of confidence. A man who is present doesn't need to prove anything. He communicates assurance simply through attention, through attunement, through his willingness to be vulnerable and open alongside her. Performance, on the other hand, is almost always rooted in ego and expectation. It tells a woman, consciously or unconsciously, that the moment is about him, his skill, his stamina, his ability to impress. Even when men have the best intentions, performance-focused intimacy communicates pressure. And pressure, no matter how subtle, shuts down pleasure. The body doesn't respond to obligation. It responds to safety, curiosity, and connection. A man can execute every technique flawlessly, but without presence, the experience can feel hollow, transactional, and emotionally distant. The difference can be felt instantly. Presence creates ease. It allows the woman to relax, breathe, and engage fully. Performance creates tension, because she subconsciously picks up the expectation to react in a particular way, to validate his confidence, or to hide discomfort. Presence communicates, I am with you, I see you, and I am here for this shared moment, while performance communicates, I need to deliver and you are part of my evaluation. And that subtle shift in energy changes everything. Being present also allows a man to respond instead of react. When a man focuses on performing, he tends to operate on autopilot, following familiar routines or techniques, even when she's signaling something different. Presence allows him to notice the tiny shifts in her comfort or desire and adjust accordingly. He can pause when she tenses, slow down when she needs more time, or explore in a direction that feels natural to both of them. That responsiveness communicates care and understanding far more effectively than any calculated move ever could. Presence is not just about attention, it's about emotional alignment. Real confidence comes from feeling grounded in oneself while being attuned to the other person. It's the willingness to be vulnerable, to let go of the need to perform perfectly, and to instead focus on the shared experience. When a man is truly present, he can tolerate uncertainty, read subtle feedback, and navigate the ebb and flow of intimacy without panic or ego-driven anxiety. That tolerance and adaptability radiate confidence in a way that performance never can. When men operate from presence, they create a safe container for a woman's pleasure and emotional openness. She senses that he is comfortable in his own skin, unhurried, and willing to attune to her experience rather than control it. That comfort encourages her nervous system to relax, her body to respond more fully, and her mind to engage without distraction. Presence doesn't just enhance physical sensation, it amplifies emotional connection, trust, and desire. Contrast that with performance-driven intimacy. In that state, a man may know the mechanics of pleasure, but he is less able to adapt in real time, less able to notice subtle shifts, and more focused on outcomes than connection. His confidence is brittle because it depends on external validation. The response she gives him, the perception of success, the measurable results. When outcomes are uncertain, performance-based confidence falters, creating tension that she feels instantly. Presence-based confidence, however, doesn't require validation. It thrives in connection, in responsiveness, and in the ability to fully inhabit the shared experience. Another critical aspect is how presence communicates trust. By being present, a man signals that he can hold space for a woman's vulnerability without judgment or expectation. She feels free to explore, experiment, and express herself fully. That trust is the foundation of emotional and physical pleasure. Performance, by contrast, often conveys subtle judgment or expectation. She feels she must deliver, conform, or respond correctly. That pressure undermines the sense of safety necessary for deep intimacy. Presence also transforms the experience into a co-creation rather than a transaction. When a man is present, he is not giving or receiving pleasure. He is participating in a mutual flow, responding to feedback, learning from her body, and allowing the moment to unfold organically. This co-creative approach allows both partners to experience pleasure that is richer, more nuanced, and more satisfying than anything performance alone could generate. Books like The Art of Loving emphasize that true connection is built on awareness, attention, and attunement, not mastery of technique. Presence embodies these principles in every touch, every gaze, every breath. When a man embodies presence, he doesn't just create physical pleasure. He cultivates emotional intimacy, trust, and a sense of profound partnership. Presence also empowers men because it frees them from the fear of failure. When confidence is tied to performance, every misstep feels catastrophic. But when confidence comes from presence, mistakes are simply part of the ongoing dialogue. If a gesture isn't received as intended, if a rhythm feels off, if the moment doesn't go perfectly, a man operating from presence can adjust without panic, apologize if necessary, and continue to engage fully. That adaptability, humility, and attunement radiate real confidence. Furthermore, presence nurtures curiosity. When a man is present, he naturally wants to understand her experience, to explore what brings her pleasure, to respond in real time. This curiosity replaces anxiety with engagement, judgment with exploration, and pressure with connection. Curiosity, rooted in presence, transforms intimacy into an adventure rather than a performance review. The effect on women is immediate. They feel seen, understood, and valued. Their nervous system relaxes, their breath deepens, and their desire grows in ways that mere technical skill could never achieve. Presence creates a space where she can fully inhabit her own pleasure, knowing she is supported, safe, and desired for who she is, not just what she produces or how she responds. In essence, presence is the ultimate expression of confidence. It communicates mastery of self, attunement to a partner, and the courage to fully inhabit the shared moment without pretense or expectation. Performance can mimic confidence, but only presence can generate it authentically. And when men learn this truth, intimacy transforms from a mechanical act into a deeply resonant, emotionally charged, and mutually fulfilling experience. Real confidence does not come from how well a man performs. It comes from how fully he shows up. It comes from the willingness to notice, to listen, to adjust, and to respond with curiosity and care. It comes from the ability to hold space for her experience while staying grounded in his own presence. That is the kind of confidence that builds trust, deepens desire, and creates intimacy that lasts far beyond a single moment. When a man embodies presence, the hidden pressures, the subtle tensions, and the unspoken anxieties of performance dissolve. What remains is connection, true, unshakable, and deeply satisfying for both partners. Presence doesn't just change the way a woman experiences intimacy. It changes the way intimacy exists in the relationship altogether, transforming it into a source of joy, trust, and profound emotional and physical fulfillment.